But firstly, I thought I'd get your thoughts on the top story. Benjamin Netanyahu's comments. Is Albanese weak and also betraying the Jewish people of Australia?
Well, this is certainly very strong words from Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of a liberal democracy, the only liberal democracy in the Middle East and an ally of Australia. And you can understand why he would feel betrayed by Australia and by Anthony Albanese, because let's face it, recognising a Palestinian state goes against everything. It goes against everything that Benjamin Netanyahu is fighting against. While there is still Hamas that is in control of Gaza, while there's still 50 hostages that are unaccounted for, and while there is still peace that needs to be negotiated before we can get to a Palestinian state. There was some outrageous language this morning, I think, from Tony Burke on the ABC, who said that weakness or strength isn't measured by the number of people that you blow up or the number of children you starve. I mean, that's incendiary language coming from a Home Affairs Minister who is now blocking visas for Israeli politicians, and yet somehow is very open-minded about allowing people into this country. Granting visas to Mohammed Ghulam, for instance, who supports Hezbollah, or Sami Hamdi, who supported Hamas, who actually said that October 7 was a victory. That inconsistency is just unthinkable. So you can understand why Benjamin Netanyahu is so frustrated with Anthony Albanese and his government.
We heard from Julian Hill this morning on First Edition with Pete Stefanovic, and he was talking about Tony Burke is doing a wonderful job, that he's stopping hate and division from coming into the country. My concern and immediate thought with that is it's already taking place in the country.
Here. So that's right.
Is the Prime Minister fueling anti-Semitism in our country like Benjamin Netanyahu is claiming? You would
hope not, but I do agree with Benjamin Netanyahu that Australia's Jewish community feel abandoned by their own government. And, I really feel for Josh Burns, and I know you're going to speak to him later, that every time he walks around his community, his electorate, he must be approached by his own community who can do nothing but express their frustration that their own government has abandoned them.
What is our Anthony Albanese to do then? He has condemned anti-Semitism. He's always been very firm on that. As soon as anything has happened, I covered the Melbourne synagogue attack. When that happened, he was quick to condemn that. He has always condemned anti-Semitism in our country. What do you want him to do?
I think we want an even playing field. It seems to be so unfair that a pro-Palestinian march can walk through the city, can intimidate Jewish Australians, that we can still have anti-Semitism on campus that's running rife. It does seem to be one rule for some and another rule for others. That's entirely unfair. On recognising a Palestinian state, though, I think we need to be honest about this and say recognising a Palestinian state, preempting that before the hostages are returned, before there are peace talks, before there is an understanding that Israel has a right to exist. That is in fact provocative, that unfortunately it's not going to see the return of hostages any faster. It's not going to see the swift passage of aid to the Gazan civilians. It's not going to bring about peace any quicker. This is simply a gesture. It's a gesture that maybe it appeases some of his voters, but it's not going to make any difference in the Middle East.
As you mentioned, I will be speaking with Josh Burns later on in the program, so it'll be interesting to get his thoughts and how conflicting it must be for him at this time. Let's move, though, now to the round table. It's been quite uneventful. What are you feeling about it?
Well, unfortunately, because there is an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to deliver real and tangible outcomes that will affect productivity. And let's face it, productivity in Australia hasn't just slowed down. It's actually gone backwards over the last 5 years. And that means that we're going to have lower living standards, that it means that we're going to have lower pay rises, and that we're going to have a smaller and poorer Australia. They're the words of Michelle Bullock. They're the words of now Philip Lowe as well. And business leaders know this. And yet somehow it seems that the unions, particularly the ACTU and its ambit claims that have absolutely nothing to do with productivity seem to be getting all the headlines here. My concern with this productivity roundtable has always been that it's essentially a shroud. It's a Trojan horse for Labor's existing agenda. We saw that with the Jobs and Skills Summit in the last term of government, that we got all these very bright minds and good hearts around a table, and then essentially the only ones that we listened to were the ACTU. They got their multi-employer bargaining. They got their same job, same pay. They even got the right to disconnect, which was an ambit claim. Well, now they're putting forward ambit claims again. That's just nonsense. Unless we're really dealing with the heart of the issue, which is how do we inject opportunity and aspiration into our business sector, well, productivity will continue to flounder.
Yep, so safe to say you're not too happy about the levy. But when we look, I guess, we heard from Andrew Clennell this morning. He said people he's been speaking with say that Jim Chalmers is doing a good job. Obviously, we don't have cameras inside, but that Jim Chalmers is doing a good job. He's got a tough gig ahead of him. Actually, the Treasurer earlier in the week pointing the blame at previous coalition governments, which you were a part of. Your response to that, where to from here?
Well, you would expect Jim Chalmers to do that. And I do repeat that this is an historic opportunity. We would hope that Jim Chalmers grasps the bull by the horns because it's too important an issue not to. However, how powerful is Jim Chalmers in his own caucus when you've got Anthony Albanese contradicting him at every step of the way? We want to see real change. Today they're going to talk about reducing red tape, something that the coalition has been passionate about. In fact, two issues. One is the National Building Construction Code, pausing that. That's a terrific idea. It was something that we took to the last election. Finally, Labor are now talking about it. That could unlock around 30,000 new home builds. The other is changes to the EPBC Act. Again, something the coalition championed more than 5 years ago. In fact, it was Susan Lee who, as Environment Minister, championed that change and commissioned the Samuel Review. Well, when she put forward the proposals that they're now considering today, Labor knocked them back. Finally, though, it does seem to be that the Dawn is now realising, or they're on Minister Watt and others, that unless we change the EPBC Act, we're going to be hamstrung with those new project approvals, and that's going to slow down our economic growth. So this is a really important opportunity. Let's see how powerful Jim Chalmers really is and whether he can override both the unions and his leader. And
also Ted O'Brien, a lone soldier in there. Hopefully we see some real outcomes.
A lonely little petunia in an onion patch is Ted O'Brien in there.
Well, hopefully we see some real outcomes. That's what Australians want to see, and not just a talk fest. Jane Hume, always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Holly.